Everyone, welcome back. We've been taking a look at some of the major ideas that have led to these contemporary topics in the humanities, such as what is art, what it makes an artist an artist. Does that something have to be traditionally beautiful or representational to be considered great art? What is reality? What is truth? Right? That Dadaism and Surrealism are all questioning. I wanted to pick up with that, with taking a look at Picasso's Guernica, and all of these are going to be topics for your next writing assignment. So I want to cover each of them in detail, so you have the context, know some of the ideas that are going beneath the surface, so you can understand some of the complexity, and that will help to enrich your discussion. Let's take a look at Picasso's Guernica. Just taking a look at the historical context of this. The painting here represents a time period in Spain during the Spanish Civil War, and on one side you had the fascist forces, which was led by Francisco Franco, coming to power, much like what we see with the fascist forces in Germany at the same time. Francisco Franco, like Hitler, was pushing for peace and stability and is going to put an end to the problems of Spain. But what he really does is he brings mainly death and destruction. And on the other side, you have the people that are loyal to the Republic, that want to keep this tradition of Spain alive. And so this comes to the head at in the 1930s. And what you have is these two forces that are battling it out. And in between this, you have a region in northern Spain on the border between Spain and France, known as the Basque region. And Basque are mainly just migrant people. It's kind of interesting if you take a look at their genealogy and their, particularly their DNA. Their DNA is vastly different from all other Europeans. There's actually a lot of Basques that moved to Boise, Idaho, and I went to an exhibit that take a look at this migration to the United States, and they were taking a look at the DNA, and they suggested that they don't really have a lot in common with people from Spain or France, right? And so it's kind of interesting. There's kind of a mystery behind their origins, and so they never really considered themselves French. They never really considered themselves Spanish. They considered themselves their own kind of group. These Basques, and mainly they're migrant farmers that really don't have this sense of the same modern sense of nationhood, and so. Once in a while, then they date back to the Middle Ages. Once in a while, there would be a Spanish king that would send a tax collector to a Basque village to collect taxes from them, saying, hey, these guys aren't paying taxes, we need to get more money from them. And according to legend, I don't know how true this is, but according to legend, they would find that tax collector decapitated several days later. And so the whole idea of the Basque was, we're not French, we're not Spanish, we don't want anything to do with you, leave us alone, right? And so during the Spanish Civil War, that becomes a bit of a problem because, like any war, there's this clear line between you're either with us or you're against us. And Francisco Franco, since they didn't join his side, he considered them to be a threat. And so what he does is he goes to his friend Hitler in Germany and says, hey, I have this problem with this region in northern France. Can you help me out? And Hitler says, hey, I have a problem as well. I have all of this military technology, these bombs and planes. I don't even know if they work really in a wartime setting. And so Francisco Franco says, hey, send them down. And so Hitler sends down his Air Force in what is known as the Blitzkrieg, which is German for lightning war. And the whole idea of a Blitzkrieg is to have the Air Force come in and bomb everything standing and keep bombing it. And so there's nothing left standing, which makes it really easy for the infantry to come in and have superiority, right? And so what you have is the German planes bombing this Basque village of Guernica for 3 hours, and the village burned for 3 days, and you have 5,000 people that died during this conflict. And when Picasso, who was living in Paris at the time, but originally he's from Spain, when he heard about this, he was horrified. He said, this cannot happen. Generally, Picasso's works are apolitical. He doesn't really get into political disputes. He mainly focuses on art and furthering the discussion of art, much like what Dadaism is seeking to do, questioning, new directions, new ideas for art. But when he heard about this, he was particularly moved by it, and he wanted to represent this. And so this is his memorial to the people that lived in Guernica. And so what we see here, a couple of symbols that I wanted to point out. You see the bull on the left-hand side, and then the horse in the middle. And both of them are particularly important symbols for Spain. The bull is this representation of this aggressive, violent, chaotic force that comes into the arena. And then the matador kind of, quote-unquote, tames the bull until he kills it. And so this conflict between life and death is this symbol that dates back to the early part, I think perhaps the 800, somewhere around there, this tradition. And the horse is also an important part of the bullfight, because generally what you have is a bull. If you just kind of put the bull out into the arena, you would probably just go to sleep, right? But they want to make the bull mad and angry, and also to weaken the bull. And so what they will do is they'll use what is called a picador. A picador is someone that rides on top of a horse up to the bull and takes a spear and starts poking the back of the neck of the bull to get the bull angry, but also to start bleeding the bull, to start weakening the bull, to make it more manageable for the bullfighter. Generally, and I was able to go to Spain a couple of years ago, they would train these horses with blinders on to only respond to voice commands or the hand gestures, the hand movements of the rider. And the reason for this is if a horse saw that a 2,000-pound bull coming towards it, it's going to go the other direction. And so they generally train it with blinders on. And a lot of times what's happening when the picador is spearing the bull is ramming its horns into the horse. And the horse does have some protected padding on, but a lot of times the horse dies as well, right? And so you have these two kind of tragic events, which were really big in the early to mid part of the 20th century. Hemingway makes bullfighting really famous with his book, The Sun Also Rises. Today we kind of see it as inhumane and violence against animals and all sorts of stuff. I wanted to show you some aspects of the bullfight, right? The tradition, the heritage. You have the matadors coming into the arena here. You see the picadors behind them. They have the padding on the horses. The bull comes into the arena. Generally, the matador has different size capes. I didn't know this until I went to Spain and was talking with the matador, and they were showing us. There's the picador, right? The bull ramming the horse, and the picador spearing the bull. And then you have other people that are helping to try to distract the bull as they're spearing it. Here you have the matador has lost the cape, and now he's just going to poke it. I can't remember what those are called. But this is at the very end, right? When the bull is finally worn out and the audience is getting bored, they then take out the sword, and they use a different size cape, right? A smaller cape. Once they get a sense of what direction the bull is going to turn, they start letting the bull get closer and closer to make it more and more dangerous for the matador, right? Or giving the illusion of danger, I suppose, because the matador is completely under control in a lot of ways, right? Gets it to go, just trying to wear out, circle the bull. And once the bull is sufficiently worn out, they're going to take the sword out. He's going to only have a sword. Oh, there it is. There's the sword. He's hiding it behind the cape. He's going to take the sword out, and he's going to put it right in between where the head and the neck meet, and it kills the bull instantly. Here we go. And the bull will fall. Here's another pass, right? It's kind of sad, really sad. When I was in Spain, I couldn't go to a bullfight. I mean, I talked with a matador just to see what it was like, get the experience of it. But I don't know, it's just so brutal. I don't think I could do it. But this is an image. This is a black and white image of the work of art. Just give you a sense of size and scale. The work of art actually is black and white. It says monochrome, and that's kind of for a reason. I've never been to see the actual work of art in Spain. It's in Spain now. It was in New York for quite a long time. But they had an exhibit when I was in Paris, and this gives you the life-size rendition. So I was actually able to experience it to some extent. They wanted to commemorate Picasso's Guernica because it's such an important piece, and that's why this is the third component to our, what's the major influences of contemporary art. Guernica becomes extremely important. They had an exhibit, and they just showed you they had some pictures in the exhibit of the burned buildings, the mother looking at their dead child in the streets. Here's just the village that's still smoking after the bombing, and just the complete devastation. And the idea for this is, Germany wasn't at war with Spain, right? It wasn't really at war with the Basques. They didn't do anything. They didn't have any weapons. They didn't have any tanks or anything to fight back. This was just a brutal attack, a complete genocide of a group of people, just based on who they were, right? This image is going to give you, or this video here is going to give you a three-dimensional rendering. So it gives us the painting in a new context, giving us to see more of the texture of it. It is a painting. It's a two-dimensional element, but here we see someone has come in and made it more of a three-dimensional to give us new insights into it, because it's hard to get a sense of a work of art from just a digital screen, right? It's better to actually go there and interact with it. And since we can't do that, that would be my ideal, is us to all fly to Spain to take a look at this. Since I can't do that, this is the next best thing. Here's the severed head, the scratches on the arm, the mother carrying her dead infant in her arms, looking up. Perhaps this is a prayer, asking God for help. Perhaps this is screaming out at the planes overhead. We have the bull here, a symbol of Spain. Generally, it's a symbol of the vitality, the strength, the tradition, the honor of Spain. Put in this context, it could have different meanings. Here you have a light switch overhead, the candle with an arm, a person coming in. Some people suggest that's Picasso. It's a self-portrait of him shining a light on the world. Another person screaming out in terror up above. Again, that could be a prayer, or it could just be, hey, stop bombing us. What do we do? Feeling of helplessness, a feeling of horror. Right? There's no Germans that are represented here. There's no planes that are represented. Much like Hemingway, this is all under the surface, but we still get a sense of the tragedy, the devastation, someone running for their life here. The horse with a spear inside it. Again, the horse is also a symbol of life, vitality, but put in this context, under these conditions, it perhaps has new meaning, and we can question what that is as we get at what's underneath the surface. The broken sword, the severed arm, right? The matador with a broken sword, and a flower coming out. Is that a symbol of hope? Or is it something that's beautiful that's being extinguished, right? Again, there's some ambiguity that we can take a look at, right? Let's take a look at some of the symbols. Now, what I will say is Picasso never commented on his art, right? He never did, right? Much like Hemingway, he just said, my art speaks for itself. What you get out of it is what you bring to it, right? And so the fact that he labels this Guernica is a help that indicates that this is that specific moment. The fact that it's in 1937 when the bombing happened also gives us few further insights into this. But taking a look at some of the symbols, right? What does the bull represent? As I mentioned, it represents, right, Spain, the Spanish culture, Spanish heritage. And so in this sense, it could represent that, right, the symbol of Spain. But it also could represent the Basque people, right? As the bull enters the arena, the Basque people are dead, right? As soon as the planes were overhead, they were dead, right? And there's nothing necessarily the bull did wrong, right? The bull is going to be killed as soon as it goes in the arena. Even if it kills a matador, there's going to be another matador that comes out and kills the bull. And so, in a sense, it's a tragedy, right? A bullfight is a tragedy. They might consider it a noble tragedy, but in a sense, it's still a tragedy. This idea that death surrounds it, right? Taking a look at the horse, right? What might the horse represent? I would suggest the horse might represent the Spanish people, right? That the people that were there, even though they weren't necessarily actively killing people, the fact that they stood by and let it happen, right? The fact that they allowed Francisco Franco to go on for so long, they're passively allowing this to take place, perhaps suggests that there is some accountability for them, right? Now, this is going to be a question that we're going to take a look at, that Jean-Paul Sartre is going to take a look at with existentialism. I know that some people have some issues with that kind of context. So do we really have to stand up and do something if we see a problem? Or, am I not responsible, right? So that idea of responsibility is going to be something that's going to be questioned throughout the 20th century. What is our responsibility? Taking a look at the light overhead, that could be the light. It could be the idea of enlightenment. It could be the idea of the blitzkrieg, right? This lightning war that's coming down overhead. But it also looks like a light. It could be the eye of the world watching. And so the question is, what are we going to do about this? Are we going to be like the Spanish people and let tragedies like this take place, right? And then, as I mentioned, the candle could be Picasso coming in. Some people have argued that that's Picasso coming in as a self-portrait. And this is just a severed head, right? And the eyes on one side of the face, Brian Regan would say, I'm going to take points off for Picasso. But partly this is to give us more than one reference point. Rather than like the Renaissance, you just paint from one point perspective. Picasso's trying to get paint not just from the front side, but from the left side, the right side, from the top, the bottom. He's trying to incorporate motion within his works of art. So that's why we see generally more than one eye on the side of the face. It's because he's given us multiple perspectives. But it also could be that this face is now deformed because of the explosions and the bombings, right? Taking a look at, as I was over there, as I mentioned, at the exhibit in, they have a Picasso museum in Paris. As I went to this, they had an exhibit on this particular one. This just gives us a sense of the propaganda, right? And this is some of the propaganda that comes out against Francisco Franco about this is the culture of Francisco Franco. This is what the fascists are doing to Spain, and we need to liberate Spain against fascism, right? This is the Spain as the anti-fascist, because this is what's going to happen if we have fascism, right? So again, these are just some of the propaganda that comes out of the era to question this idea of death and destruction. And that's going to be a big part of the 20th century, because there's going to be so many wars, so much death and destruction. I wanted to show you this. This was also on display at that museum. The different renditions that Picasso went through before he got to this, right? Some people might take a look at Guernica and suggest that it looks chaotic, it's not necessarily traditionally beautiful, and so he just must have really quickly went through it. But the truth of the matter is he went through several drafts, and I wanted to show you some of those drafts. And this helps us to think about our writing as well, that we're not just going to do this singular act. We might actually need to revise, right? So here's an early sketch of a work of art. You see the decapitated head and the hoof next to it, right, the horse hoof. Here you see another rendition, right, of a draft that Picasso's working on for the horse. He kind of keeps that one looking very similar to it. Here's another rendition of the horse, and then a woman with a child, a dead child in her arms, just working through the different variations of how he wants to represent this. The close-up of the hand, he keeps that one pretty similar. Here's another rendition of the bull and the horse, and then the person coming in with a candle to shed light on this. This particular rendition looks more like a woman coming in. He's kind of altering that. We see a dead body down here. Perhaps this is a matador or a picador with the spear here. And then we see the wound of the horse and something emerging from it, right? This idea of hope coming from it, perhaps. But again, getting us to see that there is variation, that artists are thinking very critically about their art to get us to think more about what their works are trying to represent. But this work becomes a particular importance within the art world. At first, they display it in New York, because Picasso says that this work of art will never be in Spain as long as Francisco Franco is the president. And he was the president until the 70s, and then in the mid-80s, I believe, early to mid-80s, It was moved from the Museum of Modern Art in New York City back to home in Spain, and so now it's currently there. But a lot of artists are influenced by this. And in fact, I would even say that all artists from the 20th century have to go through Picasso, and specifically through Guernica, in order to to create their own art, because of its profound social message, because of its importance, because it's focusing on the violence and destruction, right? We see a lot of the ideas of surrealism embedded within this, right? These dark tendencies that humanity has, and Picasso displays them very vividly for us. And so these ideas about what art is, what is reality, what are political and social institutions doing, are going to be some of the major themes of the 20th century. And we see that through these works that we've been taking a look at, through Dadaism, through Surrealism, and through Picasso's Guernica. And this next paper is going to ask you to take a look at those works, to face them head on and take a look at their themes. And this will establish a foundation for us analyzing all the art of the 20th century and beyond.